Bang & Olufsen has dominated the power speaker market for more than 30 years, and while there have been several attempts to compete on their level, the new Duettos from Sonus Faber are ready to challenge the brand at their own game. But unlike Bang & Olufsen, when it comes to appealing to a more traditional hi-fi audience, Sonus Faber may actually have an advantage. The Duetto's well-crafted, more traditional appearance should make bringing audiophiles over to the powered dark side an easier task. And you can see Sonus Faber's hand all over the Duettos, everywhere from their iconic lute shape to the stylish wood cabinet that houses the 1-inch silk dome tweeter and 5¼ inch woofer. Now, like all powered speakers, there is no need for an outboard amplifier or receiver. The Duettos have 4 internal amplifiers. Each speaker has two, a 250-watt Class D amp for the woofer and a 100-watt Class AB amp for the tweeter. The speaker's amplification plus its drivers and rear ported cabinet combine for a reported frequency response of 37 Hz to 30 kHz with a maximum SPL or volume level stated to be 105 decibels at 1 meter. Sonus Faber has included multiple input options so that the Duettos may serve as the centerpiece of a modern hi-fi or basic home theater setup. There's an RCA-style line or phono input, which can be used to connect a turntable or an outgoing analog signal from, say, a third-party DAC or streamer. There's an optical input and HDMI with ARC support, and to enhance the low end, there's also a subwoofer out. The Duettos can access music wirelessly via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, Chromecast, and they also support streaming services like Spotify Connect and Tidal Connect. Oh, and they're Roon ready as well. And these speakers are pretty easy to set up. For near wireless music playback, plug each speaker into a nearby wall outlet using the included power cords and just place them on stands or a sturdy piece of furniture and connect them to your home's Wi-Fi or your phone's Bluetooth. Controlling the speakers can be done manually via the touch-sensitive controls on the top of the speaker using the included remote or with the new Sonus Faber app. We use the Duettos to enjoy both music and movies by connecting them to our home's Wi-Fi and Google Home devices, as well as to our 98-inch TCL TV using an HDMI cable. HDMI let me bypass the TV's internal speakers in favor of the Sonus Faber. I also tested the speakers line in, including the phono preamp, with my Audio-Technica turntable and digital input capabilities, both of which worked well and sounded good. While I tested the sub-out connection, we did most of our listening without a subwoofer. While the Duettos aren't full-range speakers, their bass capabilities are very impressive. And for our taste, they had plenty of low end without the added clutter of an additional subwoofer or cables. If you're a bass head or you just want to make sure that you're hearing every single note or sound effect that is in the mix, you can add a subwoofer. This will automatically unlock the bass management inside the app or on the web browser using the speaker's IP address. More and more, I find myself integrating our home audio with our Google Home ecosystem. Having access to music this way is very addictive. Being able to tell Google to play my favorite playlist from anywhere in our home and then hearing the Duettos spool up and start playing a few seconds later was definitely one of my favorite ways to enjoy them. When it comes to the Duettos sound, they for sure sound like a Sonus Faber speaker, but they also have a touch of like Bang & Olufsen's cleanliness. One thing's for sure, these are not just a pair of powered, say, LUMINA 2s or Sonettos. And speaking of the Luminas, the Duettos are actually more linear and neutral through the mids and highs, with more of a boost in the bass. The Duettos trade a hint of the Lumina's top-end air and extension for more weight and smoothness up top, which I liked. This makes the Duettos easier to listen to for longer periods, and it makes them more genre-friendly than the Lumina 2s. I really like how the Duettos render vocals, especially female singer-songwriters like Fiona Apple or Tori Amos. The bass and low mid-bass bump lend a little extra body to vocalists, grounding them more firmly in three-dimensional space rather than them coming across as singing disembodied heads. Tonally, the Duettos are clean and articulate without any noticeable coloration coming from their inert cabinet. Shifting focus to dialogue intelligibility and movies. Despite the Duetto's mostly neutral mid-range, the less aggressive voicing of the tweeter results in more subtle vocal inflection, especially in comparison to the Lumina 2. This can affect overall dialogue intelligibility with some mixes and with some actors. It's really going to depend on what you're listening to or watching. Older movies like Fried Green Tomatoes were particularly clear, but modern films and TV shows like Masters of the Air were less intelligible at times. Now, I was always able to understand dialogue through the Duettos, but I'm going to defer to Kristi on the final word. The bass is where I think Sonus Faber has really outdone themselves. Despite their small size, the Duettos sound like much larger speakers. Their bass is rich, full-bodied, palpable. Comparing the Duettos to both our LUMINA 2s, as well as my vintage B&O Beolab 4000s, the Duettos sound more full range and have far better control of the lower octaves than either of those other two speakers. I mean, it wasn't even close. The kick drum during the bridge of A Perfect Circle's The Noose is a great example of the Duettos' low-end capability because it sounded vividly real in our room. And keeping with the bigger theme, these speakers image and cast a soundstage that can easily be classified as boundary-defying. Both music and sound effects were rendered just so close to surround sound like. Admittedly, the definition and delineation of the sound can get a little muddy at the edges, and it is strongest and clearest between the speakers, but still, it is impressive how well the Duettos can fill a space. Dynamically, the Duettos are captivating at all volumes, and they don't fall apart when being driven to their peak. My hunch is there is a subtle limiter that keeps them from distorting or worse, clipping. I actually love listening to them at low to moderate volumes when going about my day, but even at those volumes, they still manage to turn my head. Like a lot of audio products, living with the Duettos isn't always smooth sailing. While this didn't happen often, the Duettos occasionally got confused, specifically when rapidly switching between inputs or different forms of wireless communication. For example, I was listening to the Duettos as part of our Google Home system for several hours, and without thinking, I just switched over to watching TV using the HDMI connection without telling Google to stop or give the speakers a moment to pause. This sudden shift caused the speakers to just freeze up. Unplugging and resetting them solve the issue. Just know that if they're ever, confused or they lose a signal or are forced to switch too rapidly between sources, their reliability can falter and they may need a quick reset. The good news is they always return to normal operation. Now the light show, that touch interface on the top of the speaker, it looks pretty trick, but it is in no way intuitive. I found the interface more of an annoyance than a feature, but at least Sonus Faber didn't mess with the design by putting an ugly display on the speaker's face or on that top plate. Speaking of control, the remote is functional, but pretty directional, and the range is very limited. Don't expect flawless control from a distance of more than, say, 8 feet, or from any angle that's too far off center. For such a premium product, the app is good, but it's not exactly competitive, given what you're going to find from KEF, Bang & Olufsen, or even WIM. If you're cross-shopping, other powered speakers from KEF, Bang & Olufsen, and KLIPSCH may be worth your consideration. Let's start with KEF. The Duettos, without a doubt, are the more premium-looking speaker. Sound may come down to personal preference. However, the KEF Wireless 2's lack of bass can make them feel more intelligible compared to the Duettos. Now, both of these speakers have a sub-out, but the KEF has a better app, and at their price, it's about $1,500 less, which no doubt may be the ultimate decision maker. But another KEF speaker, the LS60, may be another powered option on your list, considering the Duettos price tag. While not bookshelves, the LS60s outclass the Duettos in every way, except for maybe finish, and even that is admittedly going to be a subjective choice. The LS60s can be tuned to perform any number of ways, giving you near endless possibilities in sound, and they would be my pick of these three. As for the Bang & Olufsen entries, both the A9 and the Balance cost about the same as the Duettos, despite being single speakers with stereo-like driver arrays. When it comes to sound quality, connectivity, adjustability, and room-filling sound coupled with high style, both B&O speakers are every bit as enjoyable as the Duettos. B&O's app and user experience, it's just a little bit more buttoned up and reliable day to day. That said, to enjoy a more traditional stereo-like performance, the Duettos are the more cost-effective solution. If you're looking for a more affordable solution, KLIPSCH, the 7s and 9s may be your best bet. Obviously, neither KLIPSCH speakers are as nicely built or finished as the Sonus Faber. As much as I would like to tell you that the Duettos offer more features for the extra dough, they don't. The day-to-day experience is pretty similar across the board. Now, sound is, again, going to be subjective. If you like the KLIPSCH sound, then I'm guessing a lot of you would feel a lot better with an extra $2,000 in your bank account. But setting aside debates about price, I still prefer the sound of the Duettos, and there's no question which one I would rather look at in our room. I really, and I mean this, I really enjoyed my time with Sonus Faber's new Duetto speaker. I think they are absolutely phenomenal for music and surprisingly effective for movies. They are a premium product through and through, and while they definitely look the part, they pull up just a little bit short in terms of their overall function compared to similar luxury-priced smart speakers. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't audition a pair? No, because depending on what you value the most, the Duettos could still more than fit the bill. So that's what I think of Sonus Faber's fabulous Duetto powered speakers. But before we get out of here, this is up your alley. What did you think?
Well, what I think is I'm really battling some allergies here, but the show must go on. Sonus Faber really knows how to make a beautiful speaker, don't they?
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
I love the Duettos. I love the Duetto shape. The size is so great, and the walnut finish looks, for me, it looks like furniture grade.
Yeah.
These speakers are so much nicer than what you see in the product photography.
Yes, I completely agree. I think they look better in person than the photographs.
They really do.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to check them out if you're into products like this. And, listen, I am really excited to see how Sonus Faber develops this powered line from here. I think that they could really start to affect the market.
Yeah.
I believe that smart powered speakers are probably mostly geared towards a very specific audience.
Okay.
From a brand's perspective,
What do you mean? I guess I'm not following you. What do you mean? Like they're...
Well, like a brand like Sonus Faber with so much tradition behind it.
Yeah.
They're traditional speakers. Those are made for most of the people that watch this channel, right?
Right.
Let's just be
traditional hi-fi enthusiasts.
Yeah, the dyed in the wool.
Yeah.
Separates everything, whatever.
Right.
Whereas I think the powered speaker is geared towards a newer audiophile.
Oh, absolutely.
And so maybe from a brand's perspective, they're not really thinking that they're trying to steal the traditionalist over to this other speaker.
Okay, I would completely agree with that.
That doesn't mean that eventually they might not start having to do that.
Yeah.
Because powered speakers, I believe, outsell traditional hi-fi products probably fairly significantly, especially when, and I'm talking like sound bars.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that.
No question. I mean, maybe not the absolute like premium powered speakers like these or Bang & Olufsen, but just powered speakers in general, KLIPSCH 5, 7, 9s, Kanto,
Yeah, Sonos.
Sonos. Oh,
yeah, like the
10 to 1.
Yeah,
probably.
like the tech being very all-inclusive, easy to use, more versatile.
For sure.
So I do think that they could have a potential to capture more of the market going forward, because I agree with you, like some things like their app and whatnot could use some improvement.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think Sonus Faber has been very deliberate, because if you remember, their very first powered speaker was a more of like a sound bar all-in-one, and now we've got a pair of powered speakers for more stereo traditional listening. And so I think your observation is dead on.
And as far as the sound goes, I think we are mostly in agreement.
Okay.
And this might be like a total what?
Mostly.
Yeah. don't worry, we're in agreement. And this might be a complete nothing burger to most people watching, but something I really loved is that the Duettos play the sound of an orchestra warming up when they power on, and I freaking love that.
It's a nice touch.
It's nice.
It's a nice touch.
So anyway, back to the sound. Back to what matters.
Back to what matters.
The bass I thought was super surprising, especially coming from such a small speaker.
That's powered speakers, man. They can just hit.
I expected these to, honestly, I did expect these to sound like powered Luminas, but they don't.
No.
They're pretty different.
Yeah.
They sound way bigger than you would ever expect.
Yeah.
I think these speakers would be great for anybody that may have space limitations.
For sure.
Because you can get really big sound without having to worry about the size of your room, or maybe you just don't want to have a speaker that dominates your room. These are very flexible in that way.
Yeah. And there is a setting, too, in the app that allows you to tell the speaker if it's close to boundaries, like walls or corners, and that will curb or cut the bass just a little bit. So for desktop usage, more near-field usage, or like you said, smaller spaces, that is a nice that's nice flexibility. I just wish there was a bass tone control in case you needed to take it down a little bit more given your space.
Now, you touched on dialogue, and you said you would let me have the final word.
Yeah.
Now, for me, dialogue was not as clear
Okay.
as I know it was for you.
Okay.
But that's not really a surprise in most situations.
Correct.
You just hear things that, like, I literally don't.
Right.
Which can be a little scary, but anyway, it is what it is. But, it wasn't bad.
No.
But I suspect that has to do with the added bass, potentially, of the Duettos.
It's a little bit more mid bass and bass bump, but also the Duettos, at least in their neutral setting inside the app for the tweeter, the Duettos actually very gradually roll off as you get closer to 20 kilohertz, whereas the Luminas don't. And in fact, the Luminas can rise just a little bit, not to the point where I feel they're fatiguing or harsh or anything like that, but they do rise a little bit as you go towards 10, 15, 20K. And that's what I meant in the review, where it's like that little rise adds that little hint of inflection to vocals. And that can sometimes with certain actors be the difference maker in making their articulation sound just a little bit clearer.
I want to switch focus to the app
Okay.
for a second.
Okay.
And the IP access.
Yes, two different ways, but
Yeah.
same basic everything.
So I never used the IP access, obviously. So I'm just curious what your thoughts were about the choice to go with something like that.
At first, before I'd actually used it, I was actually really excited about it. The only problem is while that process is hugely flexible, if once you get inside the dashboard, you really are limited in what features they want to give you anyway. At that point, I was kind of like, just put it in my pocket. And then, of course, after I did IP first, and then when I launched the app and I realized IP and app are identical, I was kind of like, it's not good enough, in my opinion, for a product at this tier. And it kind of shows that Sonus Faber this is like their first foray into this market, as opposed to everyone else. They're like on versions 3 and 4.
Especially when you're coming to market with a powered speaker.
Yeah.
That is, the access and user interface is extremely important.
Yeah.
And I just think that's something that you need to put more R&D into.
I would agree. A lot more resources. And when you have such a luxury product, and Sonus Faber is just known for this, the Italian craftsmanship. There were just a couple of things about the Duetto that kind of struck me as like, missed opportunity. Like the remote. The remote was another one where I was like, I love the shape of it. I like that it's not a big domineering. It has elements of style and design, but I think it could have been all, aluminum. Felt more like the Bang & Olufsen remote, where it had some heft to it. Definitely should have been maybe Bluetooth instead of IR, RF, whatever, because it is terrible. And I do mean it. It is terrible in terms of range and directivity. But the saving grace for me in terms of control and accessibility with these particular speakers were how seamlessly they integrated into a smart home ecosystem. In our case, Google Home. These speakers performed no differently through Google than all of our Bang & Olufsen speakers. And they could all play together at the same time as if they were all coming from the same factory. And that was my absolute favorite thing about these speakers. And it was one of the things that, like, if I were going to invest in these speakers for myself, that to me is the selling point.
That's it, I'm done.
You want to say that again?
I said, that's it, I'm done. My voice is going, so
okay, all right.
We should wrap it up.
All right, guys, that is it for us. That is now our take on Sonus Faber's new Duetto powered smart speaker. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell.
Like it anyway.
Like it anyway. I mean, you should have hit the like button already, by this point. But anyway, like, subscribe, ring the bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Christy's left for you down below, know that that's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us, thank you very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile. And if you haven't been following me, you have been missing out. That's right. There have been a lot of changes behind the scenes that you're not even seeing in this video, but if you're an Instagram follower or a member, you may already know. Anyway, do that. And that's it. That's it. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.